Which aspect of a foreign culture do you wish they had in your country? I could really go for more saunas and hot springs. It would be great to have more saunas and sauna culture like Finland. Japanese-style vending machines. I'm in the UK and they would just be vandalized. Speaking of, the one standard Japanese thing I'd like to see in the US would be the way you interact with servers at restaurants, rather than the onus being on the server to check up on you every few minutes. You can just call out to the server when you need them and they won't bother you outside of that. When you try to do the same thing in the US, it just feels rude. Like you're specifically pointing out to your server that they're neglecting you or something. My father worked for Roman Haas Plexiglass, and he was in Japan telling the advantages of plexiglass and how it would withstand vandalism of the vending machines. They just looked at him oddly and said, "What vandalism?" They couldn't conceive of it. Edit. Haas. I think it helps that kids in Japan are given more personal responsibility of their lives as well as a sense of how their actions affect everyone as a whole, with little things like cleaning their classroom, having a siesta midday, and then everyone staying up way later and hanging out. I miss pre-K and kindergarten. Forced nap time is much missed. Edit. Thank you, the gold. Shout out to my Swedish friends. Fika is a social institution in Sweden where people take a break from work for coffee and socializing. It's about slowing down, catching up with friends, and really not being so focused on work. It's the mindset that comes with it about self-care and not overworking yourself that I find so refreshing. In North America, coffee breaks at work typically still revolve around work talk that you don't get a chance for a mental break. I'm from the Netherlands. Did a semester of uni in Sweden. Here, if you'd be running behind on a group project, you'd Skype with your teammates in the evening to get it done. When I suggested that in Sweden, they looked at me like I had 3 heads. Loved it. Work-life balance. Working to death is not the answer in an Asian society that always wanna win or never lose face. My old company. Yearly hour-long mandatory culture seminar. Work-life balance is very important to us. Never be afraid to adjust things for a better balance. Call HR if you don't think you're being allowed to have a healthy balance. Talking to boss about the fact that I'm working without overtime, 11-hour days and every other Saturday with no end in sight. And given that they moved which facility I worked at to one that's over 2 hours away in one direction, I'm barely having enough time to sleep, much less exist outside of work or even eat. Well, the work has to get done. I suppose if you stay even longer, then you'll get the work done faster and have more time. Ignoring that if I get more work done faster, they'll just assign me more work on the same schedule. Then talking to HR about it, you are a salaried employee. Why are you whining about an extra hour here or there? Stop trying to nickel and dime the company. Fuck Raytheon. Are you the people that I work with there? Granted, we're a couple time zones away, but I get off the phone at 6 and they tell me what they are going to work on that night. Thankfully, no. I quit and went to get my master's degree years ago. So funny story. Company policy says that the company will pay for any technically oriented master's degree. You'll have to work for the company for a period of time after and some other rules. But as long as it's tech, it's good. My boss refused to sign off on me getting a robotics engineering master's to complement my undergrad. The only thing that person would authorize was phased array design, which is a trap because it forces you to stay in the defense industry. I complained to HR and was basically told she's too high-ranking to make follow policy. Teaching a second language early on in schools. Canadian. Edit. This is my first comment to ever blow up like this. I'm glad I'm not the only one who feels this way. Also, thank you for the golds. The tiny little K-12-8 school I went to had us take Spanish from kindergarten on up. The problem was, the Spanish teacher only ever taught us the same basic shit every year. Colors, counting, and parts of the house. That lasted until I was in 6th grade and she lost it and started screaming about how we were hells, angels and Satanists and ran out of the room. This year we didn't get a new Spanish teacher after that. Edit. K8, not K12. Also, WTF y'all. My random ass post made in a Wendy's parking lot turns into this. Lol. Cleaning up rubbish. I am born in Ireland but I am from Romania. They don't clean up rubbish in Romania. This is for the simple fact that there aren't empty trash bins to throw rubbish into. This is most evident in touristic areas like beaches, hiking areas and rivers. There's literally rivers filled with rubbish from tourists who don't have the decency to hold on to the rubbish. That's what I would want in Romania. I definitely agree. I grew up in Romania and there is so much beautiful nature in Romania and I don't understand why people don't protect it better. Showing the actual price of items in stores instead of having to add the tax on. Take your fucking shoes off in my house. I attended an American uni that had a local campus in my country and the professors from the American campus would travel to our local campus to teach us. In one class, the professor asked us about an aspect about American culture we couldn't understand. Not taking shoes off in the house was unanimously voted as number 1. I constantly read American interpretations that suggest they think taking shoes off before entering another's house is something typical of Japanese culture. I'm pretty sure it happens almost everywhere because bringing street dirt into the house is just a very bad idea. Why would you not take your shoes off? Almost everyone I knew growing up in the US would take their shoes off in their house. My house too. I find this such an odd stereotype. Make an attempt to keep public bathrooms clean. FFS. More emphasis of quality over quantity in food. A giant cup of watered-down coffee is not as satisfying as a modest-sized but decent coffee. A giant chocolate bar made with crappy ingredients that just barely legally qualifies as chocolate is not as satisfying or a proper piece of real chocolate. It would be nice if we could have both. If I go to a fancy restaurant, the food tastes amazing but I end up leaving hungry, which is annoying. Chains taste bland but at least I get a decent serving size. Being polite, caring for strangers as a society. I've been to roughly 20 countries but US Americans have been by far the politest and caring people I've ever met. I don't know but I have never felt so confident as in those 3 weeks. I have never gotten as many compliments from strangers. And I mean actual compliments. Not catcalling. And I've never had that many people randomly starting conversations without being drunk. This will probably get buried, but I've been to America twice and both times I found socializing so easy. Everyone seemed open and friendly, and complimentary. Even in New York, which I'd been led to believe was jaded and unfriendly. And it kinda was. But the nice people still outweigh the meanies. It's true. I am American. There are things that I absolutely love about people from other cultures. But when I'm out of the country for a while, I start to miss the openness and friendliness of Americans. We get teased about it in other places. But I love it. I'm glad you felt comfortable here. When I was in France I was taken aback watching people argue about things and not getting upset with each other. As an Australian, that was one of the most refreshing things I'd ever seen. In my part of the world, people attach themselves personally to every little inconsequential opinion or viewpoint. If you challenge that viewpoint, people respond as if you're attacking them personally and it turns to shit like clockwork. It's such a deep-seated attitude. We ended up with the phrase asterisk, no politics at the dinner table, asterisk. Someone's inevitably gonna get upset and then everyone's having a shit night. French don't give a fuck. They'll debate politics, philosophy, religion, economics, all that shit until they're blue in the face. The mood never drops. You don't feel the energy in the room become more and more hostile. So that was nice. Whenever I have a discussion in Australia with someone, people tell me to stop arguing. even if both of us are being rational and aren't getting emotional. More emphasis on public transportation like Europe. I'm from US. Edit. It's probably the case that not everywhere in Europe has great public transportation. But I think it's safe to say that collectively Europe is better off in comparison to America when it comes to public transportation. Perhaps it would be better to say like in parts of Europe. I'm from US and live in Europe. Public transit here, but so much better in Japan. Lived there for 5 years. Both are pretty good though. It's just more difficult for the US because it's so much larger than Japan and Europe. Traditional Mongolian warmongering and throat singing. It seems a lot more normal in the States to go to therapy, which I wish was a thing here in the UK. Obviously there is therapy here, but from my perspective here it seems like society only thinks you should go to therapy if you have serious diagnosed issues, when in reality it can help everyone from time to time. Also bidets. Never tried one, but it makes much more sense hygiene-wise. Like, if you had poop on your hand you wouldn't be content with just wiping it off. You'd, hopefully, properly wash your hands with soap and water. Not taking up space needlessly, being considerate to others in common spaces. In North America, people will stand in doorways, stop to have a chat in the middle of a busy hallway. Basically take up space that is for common use and not think it is rude whatsoever. I cannot tell you how many times I've come across someone blocking a doorway and you give them like 5 seconds to move, and then when you say "excuse me" to get by, they look at you like you're rude. You're standing in a doorway people need to come and go out of. Be considerate. Honestly though, this especially was rampant in school. It's like they purposely chose the busiest and narrowest hallway that had the most lockers to huddle up and have a discussion. The buttons at tables in restaurants in Korea that request a server. More self-awareness, responsibility. I'm from Canada and everyone up here likes to act like we're God's gift to the world and constantly shit on the US as if we aren't basically exactly the same. And it's not just Trump. Ever since I was a kid I've been told Canada is the nicest, most best country. Be glad you're not an American. They're all rude idiots. Quote, our identity is not being American. What a pathetic sibling rivalry to play out on the world stage. It's a very one-sided rivalry. Most Americans like Canada and Canadians or else don't really care. I used to think Americans were stupid until I had the chance to travel the world a little bit in. Now I think everyone is stupid. I wish the US was more at peace with multi-generational households. I mean, we're getting there, but that's more for economic reasons and necessity than it is for genuine cultural change. It's always seemed crazy to me in the US that 18-year-olds are expected to move out and never live at home again, and that elderly people are expected to age at home alone or in nursing homes. Like, we could all live together, and it could actually be a good growing, learning experience. Every multi-generational household does it out of economical or medical necessity. Those cute homes in Asia with 4 generations in the Monsieur. People are not really thrilled about it. There is a reason Japan has love hotels and it's not for prostitutes. I'm from Europe and most people live longer than 18 at their parents' home. I, for example, moved out with 24, but I would always be welcome to move back. Parenthood is all your life, not just for 18 years. My grandma cared for her milk till she died at home. I think that is beautiful. I've heard that other countries are much more generous with vacation time for professional workers than the US is. Probably that. I'm in the UK and have 25 days, plus 8 bank holidays, and I still feel like I have to really ration them out. Can't imagine having like 10 days. Think the EU in general mandates something like 20 plus days a year that you must take. This has been the biggest culture shock I've had moving to Poland. I never had a job in the US that gave vacation days. Poland, I think the minimum is 21 days. People seem way happier about work here in general. Also, cashiers get to sit down. I worked a few different retail jobs where if you even leaned against the belt you'd be scolded. Seeing cashiers sitting down was hugely shocking at first. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.